a breath, because I'm actually now going to do something that I don't often do, and that's congratulate the government, because there is some good decisions being made. Yes, they've actually done the right thing. You may recall back in late July, the 31st of July, I was talking about the UK's largest microchip company called Newport Wafer Fab, there had been a takeover bid by a Dutch company, which was a subsidiary of a Chinese company. So if you're keeping up, you'll work out the point was the control was with the Chinese. And I had a former director, Malcolm Penn, founder and now chief executive of Future Horizons, in to talk about it. Malcolm is back in the studio with me because Grant Shapps, as business secretary, has made the decision to cancel this takeover by a subsidiary of a Chinese company on the basis of national security grounds. After a national security review, after 3 business ministers, 6 months of wrangling, they've decided it is a national security threat and they've cancelled it. Malcolm, welcome to Tice Talk. Thanks for coming back in. This is extraordinary news. It feels like the government have listened to you and your lobbying and others who were talking about the same. Are you delighted? Are you surprised? What's your view?
Well, I think they certainly have been listening, I think, and taken on board a lot of comments that they must have received when they were carrying out their review. And I think, yes, it is the right decision because the fab is of strategic importance in a lot of aspects, both in what it's currently making and in the future products that it was developing there. So I think we've seen in the shortages how strategically important semiconductors are to the world, and that took people by surprise because most people never knew what a semiconductor was. So now at least they know that. And they know it's important because, they can't buy things, they can't buy cars because of the shortages. So I think, the chip is an important industry per se, and the fact that the UK had given up ownership of one of those important aspects was quite a severe blow because we haven't got much left, and this was one of the key jewels left in it.
It was a key one. So what's the reaction? Is there any reaction yet from Beijing, from China? Have they got a view on this decision?
Well, that's kind of interesting because the whole argument that Nexperia was kind of propounding about why the deal was good was because they were a Dutch company registered in Amsterdam and so on. So they tried to project this very Dutch European image. And so therefore, because it was European, it wasn't a national security risk because we're all partners in Europe.
Right.
So funnily, Beijing has come out saying this is a bad decision and everything else. So you think, well, why are they worried if it's not Chinese, But it clearly is Chinese because the CEO of Nexperia is the owner of Wingate, which is the parent, and he is the CEO. And he threw out the original CEO, was a nice Dutchman, a very competent person, and took the place at the helm. So he's driving the whole thing there. So
let's just be really key about this because this is absolutely vital important. And I know, folks, you might think, why are we talking about a microchip plant in Wales? But actually, it's of strategic national importance. The government has finally belatedly done the right thing, but the Chinese said we shouldn't be worried because it was owned by a Dutch company, as Malcolm's just said. But now that Grant Shapps has made the decision not to allow this takeover to proceed, all of a sudden the Chinese are saying, actually, it does matter, and we are in control, and we're furious.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, really, but going back to the importance of it, the factory is important. It's at the heart of a cluster in that part of the world. That part of the world, it may be located in Wales, but it's really not Welsh in its vision. It's international, it's global. It's leading the world in a lot of advanced semiconductor technology. And that's important because these are the future. The chip is important to so many different products. And so if you have control of the chip technology, you do control the end products to go in it. Because now the end products aren't just simply the box that the product comes in. It's all about building a better tank or a better fighter. But the electronics controls that.
Absolutely.
So it's that's important.
And what happens now, because essentially the takeover actually happened, the shares were bought by this Dutch subsidiary of the Chinese company. So somehow this gets unravelled. I mean, it's not going to be easy, is it? A bit of a shock for everybody.
Well, it's better not to have done it in the first place, I guess. But now it's done. Yeah, you do have to unravel it. And the simplicity of it is they've been told to divest of 86% of the shares, which is taking them back to the position they had when they were just a minority shareholder in the company. So in theory, you can just put the shares up for sale, I guess. But it's not quite as simple as that, because they were running the company, it is their management team. So therefore, whoever buys that really has to buy it in total rather than just simply piecemeal buying a few shares on the stock market. So a new management team would need to come into place, and that could be done. I know that the former owner of the company is interested,
Right.
and other people have professed an interest. So I think it would have to come in as a job deal.
Sure,
But
sure.
no one knows how it can be done. There's no precedent for this.
I mean, this is the point. This is really actually important, because this decision's been made by the government under a new act that came into force at the beginning of this year, I think, called the National Investment Security Act. This is the first time that a government has blocked a takeover that's already taken place. Alicia Kearns, who's the MP chair of the China Research Group and chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, she said, many will be relieved that we aren't handing over critical security infrastructure to a company with well-documented links to the Chinese state. So she's, I think, probably as pleased as you and many other people like me and MPs who understand the risks here.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that part of it is the easy bit. Now, turning it around is going to be hard. So I think really, and no one knows what the timescale of that is. Everything is kind of a little bit vague in terms of the procedure and the timescales of it. So the government, I think, needs to be a little bit clearer. One hopes they thought it through and they have a plan.
You're optimistic.
But they have got form of not having too much of a track record in that regard. But one would like to think that they do have a plan in place for unravelling it.
Now, the Dutch are not very happy. Their UK country manager, Tony Veslus, I may have pronounced that wrong, in which case I apologise. He says, we're genuinely shocked the decision is wrong. We will appeal to overturn this in order to protect the jobs at Newport. You've just referred to the fact that it needs a turnaround. In a sense, they need to attract new money, new investment, whether it's sort of private equity or whether some form of listing on a stock market or something, in order to get that investment, to get it growing and thriving and succeeding again.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, on the plus side, you can't deny that Nexperia have actually done a good job and actually running that plant there. So, I mean, hats off to that. You've got to give credit where credit's due. They are a professional chip company. Mm-hmm. They have a wonderful heritage through Philips, so they have a good pedigree and they do know what they're doing. So from the point of view of the workers and people there, they probably are quite content with the fact that they have a good owner on board that's taking care. But from the point of view of the national interest, that's another picture. So I think, you've got to come to the point whereby we do need a proper management team in there, a proper structure in there to take it over and continue running, and hopefully that will be a smooth transition.
Well, that's clearly very important. Well, it seems that there are a number of other people being sort of talked about, other companies that did look at buying the company. It's going to be a fascinating one to watch. Maybe you'll get back involved, Malcolm.
I don't know. I'm involved because my business is looking at the semiconductor industry. Yes. So, yeah, we are involved from that point of view.
And there's a shortage of semiconductors, so it's a growth industry, and we need to be more able to produce our own.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a huge growth industry. It's got a long way to go. It's so important. I mean, when you think about the importance of it, the Apollo guidance system had 2,000 transistors. A modern iPhone has 16 billion transistors.
Wow.
And it's just ridiculous in the amount of what we can do with these things in here, and everything depends upon it.
Absolutely remarkable. Well, there we are, folks. Some good news. This government has made a good, important, strategic decision, and I am delighted. I think my guest, Malcolm Penn, is also delighted. Malcolm, thank you so much for your thoughts. Really important. And it's important we consider and discuss these vital issues because it's part of our strategic national interest. That was Malcolm Penn, founder of CO Future Horizons, former director of the business, Newport Wafer Fab, the microchip manufacturing business. We will keep an eye on that because this stuff matters, folks.